It's August and summer's in full swing, and what a better way to celebrate it than with making some fresh picante sauce and some fresh, really hot, super hot I'd like to say, salsa. I'm outside here at some of my tomato and pepper plants kind of behind my deck where I planted some, and I'm going to pick some more tomatoes and some more peppers. I've already picked a ton of them yesterday, and so I'm going to go in here. I've got a few that are ripe again, and I'm going to start picking some. What we've got here are peppers that are called hot block peppers. These are a hot pepper. Beautiful, beautiful giant tomato here. And tons more hot peppers here as well. Beautiful hot pepper. This is a hot banana pepper. Let's go down to the other side of the garden where we can get some jalapenos and habaneros. I love habanero peppers. Down in here, I don't know if you can see this or not, but I've got several nice habanero peppers that are ready. Here we go, some nice habaneros. I've moved to another garden here to get some orange cherry tomatoes. These are called sun sugar tomatoes. I'm out at yet another garden to pick some cilantro. I've moved up to a front garden now to pick some chili peppers. These peppers, very different peppers. These are called hot lemon. These are a delicious pepper. They have a flavor a lot like a habanero. Chili peppers and hot lemon. I've got some parsley and basil up here near the house that I grow. Here's a couple other plants that I grow right back here in my patio. This is Cuban oregano, and I like to use that in my salsa as well. I'll pick a couple big leaves of that. And I'm also going to pick some more of this, which is what's called Minette basil. This is another form of basil. I'm just going to pick one big top off of that as well. So we'll add that as well to our salsa. Wow, that's quite a pile of produce. These are from gardens that Cindy planted and maintains throughout the summer, Cindy being my girlfriend. And what we're going to use today out of this is everything you see here. What do we have? We've got some really hot peppers, habaneros, hot block peppers, hot banana peppers. We've got red tomatoes, orange tomatoes. I've got these little cherry sun sugar tomatoes, which are just sweet and delicious. Got jalapeno peppers, I should say, some green peppers, red peppers, onions. We're going to use some white vinegar, and we're going to use some ground sea salt as well. I've got all the herbs that I picked at the opening of the show. This includes Cuban oregano, parsley, cilantro, and basil. All of this is fresh out of the garden, and so this is going to make some fantastic salsa and some fantastic picante sauce. The salsa is going to be extremely hot. The picante sauce will be a mild picante sauce. So, let's get started. Alright, you want to thoroughly wash all of your vegetables. Make sure to get them nice and clean. Don't want any dirt or grit on them. Okay, all of our vegetables have been thoroughly washed. Now, like I said earlier, we're going to be making both picante sauce, which is a mild salsa, and hot salsa, very hot salsa. We're going to start out with the picante sauce because we don't want to cut the hot peppers, the things with a lot of capsaicin, which is basically the chemical or the compound that's in hot peppers that makes them so hot. We don't want to cut those hot peppers and get the residue on our knife and then go and cut mild peppers and actually end up with a hotter than we would like picante sauce. So we're going to start out with all the mild ingredients for our picante sauce. The picante sauce is not cooked. It's completely fresh, where my salsa is cooked. Now, for both of these, we're going to want to use tomatoes. Now, for the picante sauce, we can use tomatoes with skins on them. But for the salsa, we need to skin our tomatoes. And I'll show you how to do that over here with a pot of boiling water in just a second. Okay, you don't have to have a food processor to make salsa or picante sauce, but I find having a food processor makes the process a lot easier. But for picante sauce, I like it to be very thick and chunky with big chunks of vegetables in it. Now, as far as thickness goes of the actual sauce itself, it isn't going to be a thick sauce. It'll be very thin, watery, but that's okay. We're going to start out with a fresh tomato. And we're going to want to take that tomato and we're going to want to take the top core area out, like this. Then we're going to want to slice that tomato. Now, first of all, we want to make sure that you want to take the bottom and just slice the bottom skin off
just right where that little black spot is. And then we're going to want to slice that tomato in about 1/4-inch slices. And then we're going to dice this. It's a beautiful tomato. Now, once I do that, I'm going to take and stack it back up. I'm going to slice it right down the middle. And we're going to move over a little bit, about 1/2 inch, and slice again. Now, what we're ending up here is big chunks or diced tomato pieces. You'll notice that what I've got here, how that's chunking up. So what you're ending up with is what you want to end up with is about, I don't know, maybe 1/4-inch chunks of tomato. And we're going to want to do the same thing to all of our vegetables. We're going to want to cut those up. Now, we leave the skin on for the picante sauce because when a tomato isn't cooked, the skin tends to stay on the tomato and not really peel off. Okay? But for the actual salsa, we're going to skin our tomatoes because when you cook a tomato, the skin tends to fall off anyway, and it kind of rolls up into this little, I don't know, hard to swallow or hard to chew, rolled up piece of skin. And we don't want that. So we start out our picante sauce with some fresh diced tomatoes. We're going to move on to a mild pepper, and we're simply going to want to take that and make sure the seed pod is out of it. Now, you may do yours a different way than I do mine, but I just slice down just 4 corners like that until I end up with just the seed pod out of it. Again, this is a very chunky picante sauce. It'll have some nice big chunks in it. And we're going to take our peppers here, and we're going to want to put those inside of it. Now, these little tomatoes, these little cherry tomatoes, I simply take those and cut them in half and then in half again into quarters. And I'm just going to keep on cutting here. And, oh, the red pepper, the same as that. The onion, we're going to want to take and chunk up our onion real good. And when I'm all finished here, I'll show you what I've got and I'll show you what other ingredients I add to this to make it really tasty and really delicious. Okay, I'm just about done with the picante sauce. What I've got in here is I've got 2 large, nice red ripe tomatoes. I've got a handful of the small cherry tomatoes that have been quartered or even cut into eighths. These are cut into small chunks. I've got 1 large onion, or 1 medium to large onion, and I've got probably about a tablespoon of garlic, all basically minced garlic, and then I've got some oregano, some Cuban oregano. I've got some cilantro, just a little bit, and I've got some basil, about 2 large leaves of basil that have all been chopped up real fine. And this is what it looks like before it's stirred up. And now we're going to stir that up real good. And that will bring a lot of the liquid out of the tomatoes, and that will, of course, mix all the herbs and spices in. What else am I going to add to this right here? Well, what I'm going to add is I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons, or about 1 to 2 tablespoons of vinegar, white vinegar. That'll keep it nice and fresh, and that'll keep it looking good, and actually it'll store longer in the refrigerator that way. Now we're also going to add some freshly ground sea salt. Oops, that was pepper, wrong one. Doesn't matter, we've got a dab of pepper in there. That won't hurt a thing. Here we go, some freshly ground sea salt. Basically what I want here is about a 1/4 of a teaspoon, I would say, is what I've got there. And that's good. Now I'm going to blend that up, and then I'll show that to you when it's completely finished. Okay, there's our complete fresh picante sauce. It looks fantastic. It's going to taste delicious. Now also, as this sits in the refrigerator, you'll notice this is getting filled with juice. Those tomatoes will start to actually drop juice, and this will be completely filled with juice after probably about a day or so. So if you let that sit in the refrigerator covered, you'll have a little more juice in there. Picante sauce. Alright, when we make our salsa, it's a cooked salsa like I was saying before, so we want to skin our tomatoes. You don't have to, but I prefer doing it this way. Now, I've got a pot of just plain old boiling water here. It's about 2/3 to 3/4 full of water. I'm just going to take my washed tomatoes and I'm going to just drop them into the boiling water here, about 3 tomatoes at a time. Now, we're going to let those sit in the boiling water for approximately 30 seconds. Your results may vary. If you see the skin on the tomatoes begin to split, immediately fish that tomato out and put it over here into a plastic bowl or a bowl that you have standing by for the hot tomatoes that are being skinned. Now, I'll show you exactly what happens once you boil a tomato like this, and how the skin just very easily will fall off, basically, will peel off very, very easily. And then we'll use those peeled tomatoes in our salsa. Okay, we've got our tomatoes that have been boiling for about 30 seconds to 40 seconds, Now, all you have to do is you have to just take the top core, cut it like this, and you'll notice that your tomato is already just trying to, the skin is just falling off of it. Let them cool a little bit before you do this. You don't want to take them right out of the boiling water and then start peeling them. But look at this. The skin should just basically fall off. Just look at that. Look how that just, there you go, almost the whole skin off the tomato. So, we want to go ahead and we want to skin all of our tomatoes, so you've got a nice tomato with no skin on it like that. I've already got 3 of them done here, and then we'll move on. Alright, I've got all our tomatoes peeled. Now, you might think, wow, it's going to be a lot of cutting those into tiny little pieces. Well, we don't do that here. We need a large pot, and we're just going to slice these tomatoes into chunks, and they can be really sizable chunks as well. You'll see that I'm just making those pretty big, because we're cooking this salsa and it's going to cook down. This will all cook down into much smaller chunks of tomato. Inside this same pot, we're going to place our peppers once they've been processed with our food processor, which you'll see us do here in just a minute. Okay, I've got all the tomatoes in our big pot here, as you can see. I'm going to add to that a 1/4 cup of vinegar. There we go. And we're going to grind some sea salt into that. Probably, how much sea salt? Now you say, wait a minute, Mr. G, you're always preaching low sodium, low sodium. Believe it or not, the amount of sea salt that I'm putting in this, and then per serving, this will probably have like 20 milligrams of sodium per serving. So we're going to just crank this until I've got about, if I had to guess, I would say that's probably about ½ of a tablespoonful. Now, the next thing, this is a little bit, the only canned ingredient, right here. Let me open this can up. We have got here a can of tomato paste. The only canned ingredient I've got is tomato paste. Now, why am I placing tomato paste in here? Because I don't cook this down like to do sauce, like spaghetti sauce. We need that to give it some thickness, because this sauce would be very, very thin if I didn't use tomato paste. It would be just like water, as thin as water. With the tomato paste, the sauce gets a little bit of a consistency or thickness to it. We want that whole can. Now, this is a large can of tomato paste. It's a 12-ounce can of tomato paste, and I want to place that whole can into our tomatoes here. So now we're going to push that around a little bit. The next thing that we want to do is we want to use our food processor to process our peppers. Now, with your smaller peppers, I always leave the seed pods in. Basically, all I do is I break off the stem or the top. Now, these are extremely hot peppers. These are the hot lemons. And we just drop those right down into the food processor like that. Same with the habaneros. Just break the stem off of it, right down to the pepper top like that, and drop them right in there. Now, some of your larger peppers. Now, I've also got a green tomato here that I accidentally picked, and there's no problem with eating green tomatoes. You can fry those up or you can cook those up, and they'll make a distinct flavor in this dish, so I've added that. Now, the jalapeno peppers, you may want to cut the end off and then actually maybe cut those into like quarter-length strips and put those in your processor like that. Now, let's turn our processor on and we'll get one batch going, and then I'll maybe show you as I get batch after batch here. Boy, that's tough to get off there. Okay, there's our first. Woo-hoo! Boy, those are hot. Just the essence coming up out of this into my throat, burned my throat. Whew. Wow, it's making the whole house hot. Now, the little cherry tomatoes, I do the same thing as the other salsa. Those do not need to be skinned because it's a negligible amount of skin. I just quarter these and put the big quarter chunks in there because then people get a nice surprise. If you have real tiny ones, put the whole thing in there like that. People will get a real surprise. Now, for your larger peppers, like this, like the banana peppers, just cut the top off, and then I basically cut it in half, and then just put some large chunks in there. Now you say, but what about that big seed pod in there? I leave all the seeds and all of the spines in with the hot peppers, because that's where most of your heat in a hot pepper comes from. So we just want to process all the hot peppers in here, and again, with the milder green peppers, because I do add green peppers to my salsa as well. It gives it a nice flavor. And the red pepper. We don't have to worry about too much of the seed pods on those. I just take the main seed pod out. And if there's a few seeds floating around, you don't have to worry about it. It'll be fine. Just make sure they fit in your food processor. I almost tried to get too much in there at once. And again, just blend these up. Okay, there's another batch ready. So basically what we're doing is we're just going to keep taking this and we're going to keep processing until all of these peppers are processed. We're also going to chunk and process our onions, and then I'm going to add to this some of our fresh herbs. In fact, I can do that right now. Here I've got a plate full of my fresh herbs that have been washed. We've got cilantro, Cuban oregano, we've got basil, and basically I just want to break this up a little bit like this. Now we're just going to take our chopped up herbs here and throw those down in with our peppers. Hey, look at the size of this thing. Isn't that amazing? Some of these peppers are huge. Just humongous. Now if you'd like, you can add some chopped garlic to your salsa as well. I prefer it myself, believe it or not, without garlic. So, oh, I spilled some there, didn't I? But I prefer mine without garlic. Now I'm going to go ahead and process all the rest of these, and then I'll show you what it looks like before we put it on the stovetop. All right, there's what our salsa looks like before it gets boiled down. Okay, you can see as that boils down how it's starting to reduce and how it's starting to get more looking like a blended salsa. We'll let that boil a little longer. I tell you, you really want to use a lot of caution when you're cutting your very, very hot peppers like your habaneros. You might want to wear some rubber gloves because they can be hot enough that they can actually burn your skin, believe it or not. The capsaicin can be powerful enough to burn your skin. Something else that I wanted to talk about is what do you do with this much salsa? There's no way you're going to be able to eat all this salsa, you know, in a week or even a month. So what you do is you take some storage containers like you see here. I've got different size storage containers. You fill those with salsa and you freeze it. This salsa freezes very well. Now once this comes to a full boil, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lid on it and I'm going to let this simmer for about 1 hour. Wow, that's really starting to boil down nice. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Oh, man, does this look good. And it smells fantastic. The whole house smells like this salsa. It's phenomenal. And it's a good consistency. As it cools, it'll thicken a little bit, but it's still a fairly thin salsa, even though we do have 1 whole can of tomato paste in there. There we have it. Salsa, Mr. G style. I hope everybody had a great time today, and we'll see you next time on Quick and Healthy with Mr. G.